Congressman Buchanan, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks you, Peter, and your organization. You guys do a lot of great things up on the Hill.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on Alzheimer's these days, and I know that's a subject you're very active on. So maybe let's just start kind of generally there. What do you kind of view as the next steps for Congress in the Alzheimer's space, or any legislation that you're working on in that area?
Well, let me just say up front, my passion for this is because my father, at a young age, 58, as one of six kids in a blue collar family, we found out he had Alzheimer's. And then that took us to working closely with him and a nurse and everything. So he ended up moving into our house for 10 years. So I know the impact of caregiving and what it costs, the time and money it talks to take care of a loved one. So that's a lot where a lot of my passion is. There's a lot of heart-related issues and cancer, but Alzheimer's has been at the top of the list for me.
Yeah. So how do you see, is there room for Congress? Does it need to work on Medicare coverage of certain areas? There's been some debate around that in the past, whether it's drugs or even the tests that are needed to know that you have early Alzheimer's or something like that. What's kind of the legislation that you're working on?
Well, I think the big thing is the potential to be able to take your blood and figure out exactly where you're at. There's also a lot of capability in terms of drugs that are available today. People are taking advantage of some of those. So there's a lot of movement on a lot of different fronts. We're kind of can't wait to get back, in a sense, to Washington. I mean, it's nice outside, sunny, but the bottom line, we need to be up there working together. And I've got a great co-leader on this piece of legislation, which will basically make a big difference in that space in terms of preventative. And that's really my whole thrust and what I try to push is it's all about prevention. It's about trying to deal with a problem before it becomes a serious problem. And there's a lot of things in that area that are capabilities that we can work with.
Yeah. No, so now, I mean, in the past few years, now we've seen some drugs, treatments for Alzheimer's for the first time. There's also been some debate around the cost of those drugs, the efficacy of them. How have you kind of viewed that whole debate? I mean, is this a promising sign that we now have these drugs? Is there more to be done around the cost and access to them? How do you view that?
I think there's a lot of people that, we got to work on two parts. One is the research and a lot of the effort that's being done in that space. And it's very, as you mentioned, a lot of it's pretty promising in terms of the blood, being able to analyze someone's blood work and some different prescriptions that can make a big difference. But that's where the thrust needs to be. There's a lot of people that are impacted in terms of the numbers. I brought it, but I think just in terms of Florida, it's 580,000 people are challenged with Alzheimer's, and Medicaid just in Florida is spending almost $4 billion a year. So that's one part of it, but we'll figure out the money part. But let's try to do everything we can to make a difference for and give people some hope. And I think these are very real opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that front, I mean, we're still looking for, that true cure for Alzheimer's. That's NIH has a role there. There's been obviously some turmoil there around canceled grants at NIH. Has that worried you at all, or do you feel like the Alzheimer's research part of it is still on track at NIH? How do you view their work?
I'm optimistic. They're doing a lot of work, but these things are bipartisan. And I probably passed a lot of different bills up in Washington, but you got to have a bipartisan willing partner. And there's a lot of people that are enthusiastic about kind of where we're at, but more importantly, where we can be. And we're going to just continue to push as much as we can. We got a bill we want to introduce as soon as we get back to Washington with a co-partner on that, and a Democrat from New York. So we're going to make what we really want to weigh in and make a big difference. But again, we're working closely together with the other side.
Yeah, maybe talk about that a little more. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of partisan battles around healthcare these days on the Hill. How have you viewed how has Alzheimer's been able to break through in terms of being a bipartisan issue? How has that helped? Can that help get this legislation you mentioned, actually across the finish line? Do you see a path to marking that up in Ways and Means, or getting that signed into law?
Well, that's something we're going to clearly focus on, but I did want to mention one other thing. I'm all
Yeah.
about prevention and exercise. I think that goes a long ways to minimizing a lot of these chronic diseases. And so that's something we're going to continue to push very aggressively. There's no question they've done research that'll make a big difference. A lot of the food that we eat is not very nutritional, and that's making a big challenge for a lot of people. But I think, again, on the concept of the bill that we're going to try to introduce as soon as we get back and they open up the government again is on the idea of taking someone's blood and having the being able to evaluate that and see if they have a issue or not, and try to catch it in the very early stages. It's all about screening. From my standpoint, the way I see it is what can we do to find out early and not late. It's being proactive and not reactive. And I tell people you need to be the CEO of your own health and take that seriously. And but there's a lot of areas we can work in, and this is an area on prevention, food and exercise and diet, and make a big difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that bill would be to provide Medicare coverage of those blood tests, essentially.
That's our goal. Initially up front will probably be a fight, but we'll find a way to get it done. I feel pretty confident. We have a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that want to weigh in and make a difference because everybody's been impacted by it, like I have, or maybe it's not an immediate family member, but it's somebody else that they know of, a loved one or a good friend or something like that. But this is curable. I'm hopeful, and we're going to keep pushing it very aggressively to make sure that happens and becomes a reality.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess while I have you on the healthcare subject, I mean, obviously right now with the shutdown, there's this fight over the Affordable Care Act subsidies, extending them. How do you view that issue? I mean, do you think there is some chance of extending those subsidies, or what's kind of the state of play on that?
I wish that we would got this and been dealing with this 2 months ago, because I think there is some way we could have tried to work together and get something done. We needed 6 or 7 more Democrats. It's the way it's normally worked. But I feel very optimistic that if we maybe get back up next week, there's some sense it might happen that way with other things being taken care of. So, but we need to get this addressed and addressed quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there other, work coming up, once you get back, that Ways and Means is going to be working on in the health space, whether it's on Alzheimer's or other issues, or that you would like to see it work on? I mean, it seems like there could potentially be some sort of end of year healthcare package if that comes together.
Yeah, we're looking at that, but our whole focus right now, or a lot of our focus is on Alzheimer's and trying to make a big difference on that. And I want to do that in the next couple of weeks. We've got a bill written up, drafted, ready to go. We just got to get the government back open. But again, that's our main thrust today. The things that we're trying to look at and want to make a difference to weigh in on a bipartisan basis. But I'm excited about the future.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Congressman. I think we're going to leave it there, but thanks so much for joining us today.
And thank you, Peter. We appreciate the opportunity. We'll see you shortly.
Great.